I just wanted to welcome everyone here, and I'm so glad that we have such a good showing, not only of the people who are interested in giving a speech today, which we're all anxious to hear those, but also the parents and relatives and folks that just wanted to come and hear these bright young people. I also would like to introduce our MC, really, and he will be taking over and organizing this completely.
Okay, well, let's start by getting an idea what the game plan is for the evening here. We'll have these speakers all randomized order, do their thing, and after the last speech, the three judges, and I'll introduce them pretty quickly, three judges will retire to an adjacent room to do their deliberations about the speeches. And at that time, I'd like to ask all the speakers to line up in front of the podium here, facing the audience, in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that they gave their speech. And that'll be an opportunity for the first time for the audience to be able to interact with the speakers. And so I'm going to invite the audience to come up with lots of questions for them. The questions can be directed to an individual speaker or just to the group, whichever you prefer. But I'd like to start by introducing the three judges because they play a critical role in this whole thing. There's Steve Flanders. Would you stand up? Hey, okay. And Gary DeGusta and Peter Stanzel. Okay, thank you all. I guess we can get this thing off the ground finally. So our first speaker tonight is a lady who just appeared, Maria Martinez-Furmann, who's a senior at Lebanon High, and her topic is simply volunteering. Maria, take it away. The speeches are all supposed to be between 5 and 7 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Maria. Thank you for coming this evening. Tonight we're speaking about a topic of volunteering. My opinion about volunteering is that volunteering is more than simply helping someone. It has something more to offer. It's a feeling that I get. The feeling when you volunteer your time and energy to others is so unique. It can be a calmness that I feel or one of satisfaction, and perhaps also a bit of happiness. It is not only me who feels this feeling. I recently met a volunteer who gave me a ride back home, and she said that she feels the same way too. Just to add, she's a veteran of volunteering. I know she's a part of a group named Interact, which is a volunteer club in my school. I feel this is one of the reasons why people do and should volunteer. I know there are other reasons, like to help enter a good college, for example. But normally it's for volunteers who don't have any specific reason to do this. It's because of the feeling. It is because this feeling can only be earned when you help someone or a cause without wanting or expecting anything in exchange. Another thing about this feeling is that, unbelievable or not, it helps you improve your self-esteem. Because in some way, this shows that you're a very strong person. You're so strong that you can help others with your strength. That's why volunteering for me is the definition of self-esteem and love. Yeah, that's right, love. But why love? Well, people have different definitions of love. But mine is feeling empathy towards others and want them to have a good life. A life full of happiness and above all, an understanding of who they are. Understanding their side, their worries, and then humanity. Understanding people is an important part in volunteering, like listening to them, speaking to them, and supporting them. Make them realize they just don't have your hands, but your ears too. And make them trust you. Make them feel they can feel safe with you. This is one of the most important elements in volunteering for me. Like I feel that the same way plants need water to survive and go healthy, for example. But how did I come to the conclusion that love is the definition of volunteering? Well, I have two different stories where I was the person who helped and the person who was in need. First, let's go with the story that I volunteer. Honestly, this is not exactly a story. It's just very moments where I volunteer. In specific, I volunteer a couple of times in an organization called Listen. They are everywhere around this area. Specifically, I volunteer in the Hall of Listen, which is located in River Junction. When I volunteered there, I was responsible for cleaning foods, like vegetables, organize the food in which place they will go, and some other stuff. Something important that I realized during that time is how much grateful the people are seeing people giving their time to help. Another thing I learned there is that you just don't give them food, you give them words. And your politeness. You just don't feed them food for their stomach, you feed them words for their hearts too. Something that really impressed me, just showing away how humans need to have and give love. Another proof of this point in my second story, that time I was the person in need. There was one time where I really need to have driving classes, but the problem was financial. And as we know, particularly driving classes tend to be very costly. And I didn't have any money to pay. Until my advisory teacher, called Ms. Badori, helped me by emailing her Spanish group, writing if any participants of the group could help me by offering me classes for free. I remember that 3 volunteers appeared. This showed them stay. The third one could stick to it because she has other problems in her personal life. But the 2 of my teachers volunteers were incredible. I still even today see from time to time one of the 2 volunteers. Both of them were very nice, patient, and put patient on there because dealing with a teenager who starts is definitely not easy. In conclusion, as humans we can feel incredible emotions, and that's the wonderfulness of being alive. Without this, life won't make sense. That's why I found this feeling incredible when we volunteer. It's a very unique feeling. These 2 stories of mine show this feeling, the feeling of volunteering, a type of alignment. That's why you should try to volunteer. If you did it, do it again. You'll not regret it. And that's all. Thank you for listening to my speech and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. After each speech, there'll be an opportunity for the judges to ask a question if they choose to. Audience gets your chance later on after all the speeches. Our second speaker is Riley Naylor from Lebanon High School. She's a senior, and she'll be talking about community through a lens. Riley?
Throughout my life, community service has been an aspect that I've known has importance, and I know that it has an incredible impact. But its actualization has been something that's been harder to come by for me. My entire life, I've filled my schedule up as much as I could. I've taken on more classes than my school could put into my schedule. I've worked, and as top of that, I've done more after-school activities. So when it came down to community service, despite acknowledging that I should do it, I just couldn't. I couldn't find the time, I couldn't find the opportunity. For me, it was impossible. Additionally, what community service I had done, it felt difficult to define so. I wouldn't expect that saying I helped my grandmother help clean her house was community service. Because she's my family, that's an expectation. It's not a service. Taking care of children, asking them without getting paid, that's not necessarily service because my help wasn't required. I just gave it out. And in that way, when trying to define it as community service, as something to give away, as something to add to my own establishment, as a qualification or as a credit, it felt cheap. That's why I have a complicated relationship with community service, specifically when schools require it. Because on one hand, that allows a large number of students to volunteer, and that's incredible. But on the other hand, students aren't lending themselves voluntarily. It's a requirement, and that is all it is to them. A requirement, something you need to do, a task that you need to fill. I felt it made it lose the purpose, the meaning of community service. It felt insincere. The perspective I've gained this year has changed my idea on that. It has changed my opinion. The reason is because I joined FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. I became the co-president, and from that, I had to head up every single community service project we did throughout the year. This was doing things for the Haven, doing the Walk to End Alzheimer's, doing a hot concession for Dartmouth hockey. All of these different things I had to run, I had to get people interested in and excited in, and it was difficult. It was hard. Half the people I didn't even talk to, I didn't even know, and I had to get them to sign up for something that they had to lend their own time on. That was difficult. How was I supposed to do it? How was I supposed to make them see the importance in community service? But the thing that's important about that is when you allow that, when you create an environment that gives the opportunity for people to contribute their service, it allows community to grow. And that's something I want to focus on tonight, community. Because as much as I hate incentivizing community service, and as much as I dislike having it as a requirement, when you get people, and a large group of people, to engage in something, it builds community. And it's incredible when you can build relationships with each other, with the people that you're asking to join, and they get to meet people that they didn't really know before, but are now building friendships off of. That's great. That's incredible. Because it's people giving themselves, and people building connections off of that. Additionally, when you get to interact with the people who you're servicing, that's incredible. Whether it's personally, like you're giving out meals at a food source, or you're, I don't know, giving out a letter. It's something that can really help. If you're doing something that's for a season, then you're boosting their spirits. If you're doing something that's helping them during a hard time, then you're contributing to their lives in a way that isn't expected, but is appreciated in a way that you can't define. And that's incredible. That's what community service is about. It's about community. When you volunteer, you're giving yourself. And when I tell you, in this small town, other than trees, people is all we've got. Our neighbors, those people that we look at every day and may not always engage with, those are the people who we're here to support. Because in this rural town, in this rural area, when you unite as a community, it embraces so many aspects of our lives. It introduces new abilities with different networking opportunities, different friendships, different families that you get to be a part of and you get to contribute to. Helen Keller once said, "Alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much." Think about that. The small impacts you have, the little changes you make towards those tiny little perfect things. If we do it all collectively, what growth could we make? What benefits could come of that? Think about how incredible that could be. Through community, we have an excuse to strive for greatness. And in our service that we take together, we create an opportunity to support and to develop. And that's something we should all be acting upon. Thank you.
Anybody have a question? Any of the judges have a question? Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Oliver Benedict, who's a junior at Hanover High, and his topic is what it means to be a volunteer.
Good evening. When I was first invited to this event and I learned of the topic, I, like many of you, first thought about my personal volunteering experiences. But as I continued to reflect and began writing my speech, I realized volunteering is so much more than just these. Volunteering, in fact, the whole idea is that it's more than just me. It is more than just any one person, any one act, or in many cases, any one time period. Volunteering is a force that has made history, transformed societies, and built the world as we know it. So, with that in mind, I'd like to share what I've learned about volunteering. its role in history, how it has evolved over time, and what it can continue to do to shape our world for the better. Volunteering has been part of human society for as long as society has existed. In ancient civilizations, mutual assistance was essential. People relied on one another not out of obligation, but because survival depended on their mutual cooperation. Later, this sentiment was echoed and reinforced by religious and philosophical teachings. From Confucianism's teachings on one's duty to one's community and the Christian and Islamic calls for charity, helping others has been a fundamental moral principle through cultures and societies across time. As civilizations grew, so did the structure of volunteer work. In the Middle Ages, the same religious institutions I spoke of before spearheaded charity efforts, building hospitals, food banks, and shelters. By the 19th century, volunteering had become more organized, leading to the formation of groups like the Red Cross, which provided aid in times of war and disaster, and later, organizations like Habitat for Humanity, which builds affordable housing around the world. Beyond providing aid, volunteering has been a powerful force for social change. Mahatma Gandhi, though remembered as a political leader, was first and foremost a volunteer. A man who gave his time, his energy, and ultimately his life to the cause of justice and nonviolence. Martin Luther King built a movement fueled by the collective action of volunteers, ordinary citizens who stood together to fight for their civil rights. History has shown, time and time again, that when change is needed, it is the volunteers who step forward and make this change happen. While volunteering began as small community efforts, it has since expanded into a global movement. The 20th century saw a dramatic shift, with governments and international organizations recognizing the true power that volunteers hold. In 1961, the U.S. established the Peace Corps, sending volunteers across the world to aid in education, agriculture, and healthcare. Disaster relief efforts became more coordinated, and with volunteer-based organizations responding to earthquakes, hurricanes, and crises, it has changed the way we can help these issues in ways that have never been done before. Technology has also reshaped how we volunteer. In today's digital world, people can contribute remotely, tutoring students across the globe, organizing or participating in online fundraisers, or even just posting on social media to raise awareness for causes they support. The tools may have changed, but the core idea remains the same. People working together to make a difference, to make a change. But today, volunteering is more important than ever. Climate change, political instability, global health crisis, and many, many other issues have created urgent humanitarian needs. Organizations like Doctors Without Borders, Habitat for Humanity, and countless other movements depend on volunteers to bridge the gap when governments and institutions cannot. So, what should volunteering look like for the future? If history has shown us anything, it's that volunteering must continue to evolve. It's not just about the big organization. It's about communities stepping up in times of need. It is about neighbors helping neighbors, young people finding causes they care about, and everyone recognizing that their time and their effort, no matter how small, can be the change that they want to see in the world. It's not just about charity, but about empowerment, helping communities develop long-term solutions rather than just offering temporary aid. It should be inclusive, reaching across cultures, across generations, and across socioeconomic divides. And most importantly, it should not rest on the shoulders of just one person alone. Because volunteering, at its core, has always been about people coming together across time periods, across borders, across all of their difference to build something that is greater than themselves. And that's what I believe volunteering is. Thank you.
Hang on just a second. Any question from one of the judges? Okay. Thank you. Our next speaker is Will Beirne-Freiman, who's a sophomore at Lebanon High.
Hi, I'm Will Beirne-Freiman, and I'm really glad to talk to you all today about volunteering in a little bit more of a lighthearted way. Personally, I love to volunteer. I try to sign up for as many opportunities as I can to help out around my community. I planted trees around West Lebanon a while back. I helped a bit at the Shamrock Shuffle this year. I regularly help around the Upper Valley with the Lebanon High School's Youth in Action team, when I get the emails at least. I sing as one of two baritones in my church, in the choir at my church, and last Christmas, while others were opening presents and gorging themselves on candy canes, I only gorged myself for a couple hours and spent the rest of the day serving food at the Listen Dinner Hall in White River Junction. Now, I may have ended up serving all of about 2 people, but it's hardly my fault that basically nobody showed up for food during my shift and the people in charge shut down after only 2 hours. Anyways, to get back to my point, volunteering is great. I personally enjoy it because it lets me connect with my community and help out where I can. And I think it's important not to understate the help that a little volunteering can do. We live in a time where the future of our communities is more uncertain than ever. And with such a turbulent economy, so many families find themselves unsure whether or not they'll be able to afford food. And in this mass uncertainty, what people need is help. Help that we can provide by volunteering. So many people today spend the majority of their free time online, but we need to work on building community here, where it matters, in the real world. This way we can create connections and anchor ourselves in the world along with our neighbors, colleagues, and friends. Volunteering does this, and we as people need to do more of it. Now, you might be asking yourself, at this point in my speech, something along the lines of, yeah, that's great, sounds fun, but how? And this is where I will defer to complimenting the wonderful sponsors of this very contest, the Lions Club. I'll be honest, before hearing of this contest, I had no clue what the Lions Club even was. But upon a Google and a couple clicks worth of research, I must laud them for their efforts. The Lions Club as an organization has over 1.4 million members in 49,000 clubs in 200 countries spread across the entire globe, and running fundraisers to help those in need across the world, as well as giving grants and volunteering aid to their communities worldwide. And, of course, this isn't the only way to help. If you don't want to pay dues or commit that amount of time, I recommend checking out what other opportunities are available. For teens like myself, I've got to recommend checking out what's at your school. At the Lebanon High School, I know that we have a Youth in Action Club, as I mentioned earlier, and as part of the club, I receive emails whenever a volunteering opportunity is available. We've worked with the Lebanon Rec Department, we've served the dinner hall for Listen, and we've looked after kids during parent events at the elementary schools. Almost 1.5 years ago, shortly before Christmas, I volunteered at Lebanon's tree lighting ceremony. I was the one in the minion suit screaming, "Banana!" at all the little kids. If you don't want to do all of that, or you just want to volunteer solo, or you're an adult, I'd recommend checking out the Listen Dinner Halls or a similar organization. It's a weekly or monthly thing that you can do to help, and it can be accessed pretty directly on their website. I'd also recommend checking out local government, because if they have any events, it's likely that they'll need volunteers to help out. These aren't the only ways to help either, I'll be clear, and if you can find other ways, that's just as good. Most of my examples are pretty specific to Lebanon, and I don't know much about how to volunteer a little bit further north, but it is a good place to start. And if you don't have any way to volunteer already, I'll recommend checking out at least one of the options I just described. Now, for those of you who still aren't convinced, I know that you're here, I can see it on your faces, there are reasons, besides the kindness in your heart and the angel on your shoulder, to volunteer around your community. There's something in it for you as well. Many colleges require community service hours to attend. Scholarships can be won with enough time spent volunteering, and I don't even know how many free shirts and snacks I've gained from my volunteer work. This shirt I got from volunteering at Lebanon Shamrock Shuffle, a run that they host every year at St. Patrick's Day. And you also gain exclusive advance notice to many events. Before Christmas, I received an email in advance to sign up for volunteering at the dinner hall so I could make sure that I got a spot in the event. Just last week, I received an email that invited me to a Volapalooza in about 3 weeks. And while I don't entirely understand what it is, it appears to be a party celebrating volunteers for their efforts. None of you normies get to go, but work hard and you could be invited next year. Or maybe not. I truly have no idea. But in all honesty, however great this party is, it doesn't compare to the guilt-free mass consumption of snacks that I get from normal volunteer work. But I've been off topic this whole time. Volunteering isn't about the snacks, or the shirts, or the parties. It's a feeling, a warmth that you get from helping your fellow humans, from granting much-needed aid to whoever needs it, be they overworked local government officials or hungry parents who can no longer feed their kids. It's about community and family. It's about all of us in this harsh world, but not in it alone. And no matter how, who, or why you volunteer, you can become part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Coming up next is Ian's son, who is a freshman at Hanover High, and his topic is volunteering in the 21st century.
Good evening, members of the Lions Club and fellow community members. My name is Ian's son, and I stand before you today as the proud patrol leader of Troop 253 here in Norwich, Vermont, a dedicated volunteer and a firm believer in the power of service. I'm also a cello teacher, a musician, and a founder of a charity. Yet, as much as I am involved in these volunteering efforts, there has been a troubling trend I've learned of recently. The decline in volunteering among the youth in the U.S. is prominent. Volunteering has always been such a powerful force in our communities. And I ask all of you, Lions Club members and fellow community members, how can we work together to encourage the youth to volunteer? How can we foster a culture of service in our communities, in our schools, and in our youth organizations? The answer, I believe, lies in leading by example, showing the impact they make from their actions. I've had the privilege of performing many concerts around the Upper Valley for retirement homes and for the hospital, at Kendall, the Green, the Hanover to the Wheelock Terrace, and for the Village. I see the joy on their faces from the music I play. This is why I volunteer. Along with that, I also teach cello lessons at Mount Lebanon Elementary School, and I see the happiness and excitement on the children's faces when they enter the classroom ready to learn. Along with that, I'm also deeply involved in my charity that grows flowers and then gives them to people in retirement homes and for hospitals. It's a small but meaningful gesture that reminds them that they are loved and thought of. The flowers don't grow unless someone is willing to volunteer their own time to grow them. And unfortunately, fewer young people are stepping up to fill up this gap. This is why I continue to engage in service projects around the Upper Valley, such as trash pickups around Route 5, volunteer work at Willing Hands, harvesting kale, picking crops, and of course my ongoing work as a Boy Scout. I believe it is our responsibility to help and inspire others and teach the importance of volunteering. We cannot allow the decline to continue. If young people don't engage in service today, who will be there to carry the torch of kindness and compassion tomorrow? Together we can turn the tide and show the next generation of leaders and volunteers the profound difference they can make by simply giving their time, talent, and heart. Thank you.
Our anchor person is Gabe Malloy, who's a junior at Sharon Academy High. And he'll be talking about, what are we talking about? Volunteering versus coercion. Take it away, Gabe.
As you know, my name is Gabe Malloy. Today, we will discuss the difference between voluntary actions and coercion. What happens when the choice to volunteer becomes obscured by external pressure? And how does volunteerism play a role in this? What if our actions are driven purely by free will, by an internal compass guiding us toward virtue? This is the essence of volunteerism. Merriam-Webster says volunteering is a person who voluntarily undertakes or expresses a willingness to undertake a service. But for me, that feels robotic and quite boring. So let me share my version. I would say that volunteering is the act of giving yourself to be part of whatever it is you're volunteering for. Giving yourself. It means something to give yourself. Give your time, give your skill, and even in some cases, give your life. Do we have a choice? Did I volunteer to be here today? I did volunteer today, but other things that I did today, not so much. Coincidentally enough, there is a philosophy that follows along with volunteering, such being volunteerism. Volunteerism is the idea that actions should be done freely and willingly, without coercion or external force. It emphasizes the importance of personal choice, autonomy, and the idea that individuals have the right to act according to their own will and preferences. The philosophy of volunteerism encapsulates the power of true choice in what we do, highlighting how true, real choice arises from freely given actions, not from subtle or overt coercion. Volunteerism implies that we have individual freedom and the undeniable right to choose one's actions. This is emphasized through volunteerism's emphasis on voluntary association, its rejection of any form of coercion, its idea of individual sovereignty, valuing self-ownership, all things that insist on individual freedom. Voluntary association is arguably the keystone of volunteerism. It is the right of individuals to choose who and what they associate with for any reason they see fit. This means that people are not obligated to join any group or participate in any activity against their will. Voluntary association often arises from common goals, hardships, and other scenarios that people decide are what is needed. And all of this is done with an absence of coercion. Volunteerism has deep emphasis on the basis of the value of choice, which debates that choosing is valuable in and of itself. The ability to choose is fundamental representation of autonomy and affirms self-ownership. When individuals are free to choose, they are able to express values, desires, and preferences, which are all aspects of identity. Volunteerism argues that when individuals choose to participate in an activity, they are more likely to be invested and committed. For example, in the military, who would you rather be on the battlefield with? Someone who chose to be there, or someone who was drafted, forced to go? This concept of consent is central to volunteerism and can be applied to all areas of life. Actions that are forced or coerced lack meaning for the person and are less fulfilling to actions that are freely chosen when someone is forced. They lose the moral personal significance of doing the action, which leads to resentment and resistance and lack of genuine engagement. A donation given freely out of compassion feels different from, for example, when you're at a checkout or you're checking out a store and they ask you to round up to support some worthy cause. Going out of your way to make a donation to supporting something you believe is different than being pressured at a checkout line. Maybe you do it because maybe you didn't do it because it doesn't align with your values, but maybe it does. Either way, you are coerced. The first action, giving freely and voluntarily, reinforces what you believe in and gives you a sense of self-ownership. The second action, being pressured into donating, removes the autonomy and replaces it with surrendering. My point being, there is no meaning for you. This leads me to the illusion of choice, which is an idea that is critical to understand. At its root, what appears to be a free choice can often be heavily influenced by external factors. An example of this is societal norms, which can lead to a sense of obligation. For example, participating in charitable activities may be seen as a social duty, even if the person's preferences is otherwise. Freely chosen actions lead to alignments with personal values, a feeling of ownership, better engagement. All of this suggests that freely chosen actions are not only more ethical, but more effective. Voluntarism coincides with ethical principles because actions, as we know with this philosophy, must be driven by genuine care and respect for others. Voluntarism highlights the importance of consent because someone must freely accept what is happening. Thus, respecting autonomy ensures that people's needs and preferences are respected. At its core, voluntarism underscores the power of genuine choice, revealing that meaningful actions come from free will, not from the shadows of subtle or overt coercion. So the next time you make a decision, ask yourself, is this truly my choice? Or am I being swayed by something outside of myself? Remember, to volunteer implies freedom, the freedom of choice. True voluntarism is the ability to act if you want to, not because you have to. And as I stand here today, I want you to reflect. Reflect on your own choices. Are you doing what you're doing because it truly comes from within, or is there some external pressure or expectation influencing you? I chose to speak today because I believe in the power of voluntarism. And I hope you can see how much more meaningful actions become when we freely choose them. Thank you.
Anybody have a question? Any of the judges?
I was going to ask this of the whole group, but only one of the speakers touched on it, which is the decline in volunteerism currently. And if there are any volunteers, maybe just a second addressing what you think needs to be done to get young people to step up to the plate a little bit more.
Well, as I said, we need to encourage the young people more. And they're all tied up in academic, sports, and in social media. But I believe if we reach a source of that, the schools, if we have the schools to encourage them, if we put more advertisements up for opportunities to volunteer, I believe that would increase the amount of volunteers in youth.
So we had one speaker talk about coercion versus volunteerism. So you don't see schools encouraging volunteerism to be a form of coercion?
Yes, some schools make it a requirement, but others don't.
I think that I definitely agree that advertising is very important. I know, at least in my school, that the club that does volunteering has a single sign up on one incredibly out of the way bulletin board in the entire school, and it's just generally hard to find, while sports and academics and other extracurricular activities that don't involve volunteering get a spotlight.
And I think if I were to try to speak to that as well, I think we can see that, as Ian talked about, there is a decline in volunteering. And I think we can hope at least that that's not because people are becoming worse and worse in their souls. I think we can kind of connect that to what Ian was talking about when he answered the question, in the fact that is it a possibility that they just don't have these options, that these people are tied up in many other activities and they can't find the time, right? So I mean, I think you can probably take two different lenses on it, and I think the last speaker did a really good job doing that.
Oh yeah, it's also, I believe it's important to realize that volunteering is not just volunteering for a food shelf or something else like that. It's more basic than that, and it's being willing to do the things you do on a day-to-day basis because you see value in it. And if you don't see value in the cause, people won't be motivated to do it. So finding that value for young kids is something that needs to be implemented into them, and not just introduced when they're in high school or so, because they didn't grow up with it. They don't know.
Well, I think it's time to let the judges retire, and if I can get all the speakers to stand up here in front of the podium in your order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, left to right, that would be great.
Left to right from the judge's perspective? Or?
I'm looking at the front of the room, left to right.
Whoa, wait a minute.
We want to thank you very much for coming in. I interrupted everybody.
Okay, thank you all. Now it's an opportunity for the audience to really get involved here.
You're the last one, so thank you all for coming.
There's still lots to go, gang. So now's the time for the audience to really get involved here, ask questions of the speakers. Again, you can address the question to an individual speaker or to the group as a whole. And the speakers can now relax, the pressure is off, they can just be themselves. Let's have a good discussion. Go for it.
So who were your influences in wanting to volunteer yourselves?
Can you speak up?
So who or what were the influences that got each of you to want to volunteer yourselves?
Well, my inspiration was Miss Midori. She's right here, right there. She was my advisory teacher last year, junior year, and she helped me, like the last story there itself. And this me inspired to help others because I feel more empathy.
I think it's always been some aspect of my life, but as I've kind of mentioned, I found it always difficult to define what volunteering was, what it meant to physically volunteer, whether that was something that was personal or something that helped a larger community. So when I joined FBLA, having that very strong staple of, oh, this is community service, this is something that we appreciate you doing, this is something that we appreciate that you're formulating, and having to both learn about it and head it was something that was a really interesting border to have to try and define.
I mean, I probably have the simplest answer up here, but I think I can see the good in doing good. I think being able to help people and make a change is something that's really important, especially in the position many of us are in today. Being able to extend our views, extend our knowledge and our services into the community, not only around us, but as far as our reach can get us, I think is something that people should think is important, and something I think is important.
I mean, I kind of agree. Volunteering is fun. I like helping people. That's it. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure that Kyle knows.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, not everyone is required to respond to every question. It's entirely up to you what you say.
Well, I'm sure that Kyle knows that the Boy Scout motto is be prepared, and I believe that's be prepared to help others too. And Boy Scouts, they look through community lenses, and we want to serve everybody. Yeah.
Alright, I want to answer also, sorry. I don't have a specific person. Maybe my father might have influenced me a little bit, but it was basic, like for me, it was like this. First of all, it was like me being willing to do this, but that came from this aspect of like wanting to be a better person. Because I'm becoming a believer that you're not, like nobody does anything unless there's a little bit of something in it for them. And that's not greedy, because it can be like just like making them feel better. That's something that's in it for them. So I get that fulfillment here, and also I become a better public speaker and learn how to formulate my thoughts, which is important.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Yeah.
Ian, how did you get involved with playing at assisted living facilities, and what type of music selections did you play for them?
Well, actually, I started performing music at retirement homes when I was 5. Actually at the Green in Hanover, and they would invite us over each week to perform, and we would do that each week. I would perform like this famous pianist would come and compose pieces for us to play, and we would play the pieces for them.
Who
wants to share, excuse me, who wants to share what preparation, I mean, who wants to share how they prepared for this speech? You know, did it take, did someone sit down and write the speech out? Did someone, talk with others? Who wants to kind of go over, what was the method or what was the process to come up with your speech for tonight?
I mean, what I did was I sat down about like a month ago and I started writing and I stopped at about 20 words. And then a couple weeks ago, I started writing, I stopped at like 100 words. And then this weekend, like last weekend, I sat down and I wrote up to 400 words. And then 2 days ago, yesterday I sat down and I wrote another 600 words during classes at my school.
Well, my father lives a few hours away, but he's really involved and he cares about me. So every single night, I had to implement that. Every single night I called him, for a long period of time ever since I figured it out. So it was periodically I would call him and we'd talk about it. We'd go over everything, go over thoughts. I went through a bunch of different possible topics inside of volunteering, and this is where I ended up. So yeah, it's a lot of phone call.
Nice.
Yeah.
I tend to talk to myself. Really awkward. No, so I have words or lines or phrases that I really like, and then from there I try to compose different lines and paragraphs from that. And then I'll just record to myself little voice memos, which is actually really convenient because they now they make a little transcript of everything you say. And so I take everything that I talk out, I put it into a document, I scramble through my jumbled thoughts and kind of narrow it down from there.
Nice. So that was like a dragon or something, or?
A dragon?
Yeah, like one of the softwares that you can dictate into and then it'll...
Oh, it's just voice memos on my phone, the built-in app.
Cool. Thank you.
I got a question. Oh, go ahead, Maria.
Well, I came up with my speech because I want to do something more philosophical. I want to tell more about myself and to talk about the feeling, because I already have seen this feeling when I volunteer. And I already had a conversation with a girl about the feeling of volunteering, which is a very unique feeling. So when I see the speech competition, I see the opportunity to talk about this feeling.
Okay, my question is, who knows what the altruism paradox is?
I don't know if I've got the right altruism paradox you're thinking of, but that's what I was thinking of when our last speaker was giving his speech. My way I think about it is altruism is doing good for no reason other than doing good, and the paradox is can a person or a human actually do that, make an action or do something good without respecting anything in return? Because even if you feel good after doing this action, is that something you're feeling in return? So is that actually receiving something? So does that mean you're actually taking an action out of altruism? Is that what you're thinking of there? I don't know. I'm very rusty on my philosophy.
Oh, those are very good observations, but I should give you a hint. What's normally called the altruism paradox was something that Charles Darwin really sweated about. He really worried a great deal about it. Does that provide any hints?
I'm not a Charles Darwin fan, so I don't know.
Pardon?
I don't really know, but I'm purely guessing here, but is it, if you do good, then you know that you're being a good person, and that makes it not good? You need to do good, kind of what he said, you need to do good with nothing in return, and acting like a good person being a good person is kind of something in return? I don't know.
Well, I think you need to factor Charles Darwin into the equation.
Okay.
The altruism paradox asks the question, can kind deeds be consistent with the idea that evolution is driven by survival of the fittest? And it really worried him a lot because there are actually a lot of examples in nature of altruism, not just involving people, but creatures of various sorts. For example, vampire bats feed each other. And so you can see why Darwin was a little bit worried about, possible attack on his idea that it's a survival of the fittest, which is very much focused on number one, as being the driving force for evolution. Now, a century after Darwin came up with his famous idea, there was an Englishman named William Hamilton who came up with what he called the inclusive fitness theory. And the idea here was that if how would I say it? If a beneficiary shares genes with the person that's giving it, with the donor, then it makes sense for evolution to favor altruism because those genes are being shared. So this is just another mechanism for transferring genes, for propagating genes. Okay? So evolution then favoring altruism.
I do think that compassion is evolutionarily necessary because if you can't feel compassion for your fellow members of the species, what's stopping you from killing and murdering everyone in sight? And then you might survive, but you aren't going to have children because everybody around you just saw you killing and murdering everyone in sight. So compassion, at least, is evolutionarily necessary, and I think that altruism is very much helpful in community environments, in nature. Like we can see with vampire bats, they live all in a large community, so they'll feed each other because if one night a vampire bat isn't able to get food, they're still able to survive because other people can give that, because other vampire bats can feed them, and then they can return the favor on other nights. So it helps the community as a whole.
Yes, yes. Good. Okay, well, just one other observation here. If one of the reasons why sex is fun is that it propagates genes, why shouldn't altruism, which does the same thing, also be enjoyable?
Is it?
Oh, I thought it was a question.
Is it?
3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. All right. I guess it's time for us to have a little award ceremony here. So I guess I'll ask all the speakers to sit down first, if you would.
Okay.
And thank you again all very much for all your contributions. It's been very, very interesting.
And the judges, we were very impressed with the entire field.
Pardon?
The judges were very impressed with the entire field.
Oh, good. Very good.
Yeah, you wrote it upside down, but it worked.
Yeah, yeah. That's fine. Okay, for the third prize is a check for $100, and it comes along with a ribbon here, and this goes to Beirne-Freiman. Take a picture here, Tim. Okay. Very good. So let's see what we got here. The second prize involves a check for $150, and this goes to Ian's son. Okay.
Thank you.
And finally, first prize goes to Riley Naylor. It's a check for $250 and an appropriate ribbon. Okay, I guess I'd like the speakers to hang around just a little bit afterwards, but this is really the end of the show. So thank you all for coming, and again, thank especially all the speakers for what they did.